This video is about the spiral view of the human body. The spiral view of the human body is one of the theoretical models of the human body created for happy theory. Happy theory is a collection of information and ideas about the construction and behavior of the human body. According to the spiral view of the human body, the entire construction of the human body and every behavior of the human body is influenced in some way by a spiral. There are a variety of different ways that a spiral can influence the human body. This picture shows a three-dimensional spiral with a uniform diameter from one end to the other. According to the spiral view of the human body, various parts of the body can behave as if they are a uniform diameter spiral, like the one in this picture. The entire human body can behave as if it is a three-dimensional spiral, running from the top of the head down to the feet. The arms can behave as if they are a three-dimensional spiral that runs from the shoulders out to the hands. And the legs can behave as if they are a three-dimensional spiral that runs from the hips down to the feet. One of the areas of the human body that can behave like a three-dimensional spiral is so useful in understanding the construction and behavior of the human body that it has been given its own name. According to the coil spring view of the human body can be treated as two spirals located as shown in this picture. The purpose in naming the theoretical model the coil spring view of the human body, instead of leaving it as a version of the spiral view of the human body, is to emphasize that a spiral can behave like a spring, and to emphasize that the insight into the human body, provided by the set of spirals that make up the coil spring view of the human body, is that the area of the body covered by those spirals can behave in a spring-like way. Uniform diameter three-dimensional spirals were used to demonstrate how a spiral could influence various parts of the body. A different way that a three-dimensional spiral could influence the movement of the human body would be to replace the uniform diameter spiral shown in this picture with a spiral that has a changing diameter. In the following examples, please note that a changing diameter spiral more closely resembles the various parts of the human body that spirals were superimposed on. This picture shows a changing diameter spiral representing the entire body. The wide end of the spiral matches to the wider shoulders, while the narrow end matches to the narrower feet. The wide end of these spirals match to the wider shoulders, while the narrow end matches to the narrower hands. And the wide end of these spirals match to the wider hips, while the narrow ends match to the narrower feet. According to the spiral view of the human body, two-dimensional spirals also influence the construction and behavior of the human body. This picture shows an example of a two-dimensional spiral. It may not be immediately obvious how a two-dimensional spiral could influence the construction or behavior of the human body. The key to understanding how a two-dimensional spiral can influence the human body is to look at the gaps between the lines of a two-dimensional spiral. The gaps between the lines of the spirals have a certain volume that can hold a certain amount of material. If the lines of the spiral are compressed towards the center of the spiral, the gaps between the lines would shrink. The volume of the gaps would also shrink, which would force some of the material out of the gaps. If the lines of the smaller spiral are moved back to their previous location, the volume in the gaps would become larger. Because there is not enough material in the now larger gaps to completely fill them up, empty spaces would be created in the gaps, which would pull material in from the outside of the spiral to fill up the now larger gaps. If the lines of a two-dimensional spiral were continuously pressed in towards and pulled away from the center of the spiral, the movement of material in and out of the gaps of the spiral, caused by the changing gap size, is like the action of a fluid moving in and out of a pump. According to the spiral view of the human body, a two-dimensional spiral can influence the human body by acting as a pump to pump fluids around the human body. Another way that a spiral could influence the construction and behavior of the human body would be in the curves found in the human body. A spiral is a continuous curve. Any curve on the human body can be described as a piece of a continuous spiral, so every curve on the human body can be described as being influenced by a spiral. A spiral can influence the human body in places where triangular shapes are found. This picture shows a two-dimensional profile view of the example changing diameter spiral with one smaller end and one larger end. If an outline is drawn around the spiral, the resulting shape is a triangle. The human body is filled with triangular shapes because a triangle is a very strong shape in engineering terms. According to the spiral view of the human body, the majority of these triangular shapes are created by the outlines of a spiral because that is the best way for the soft organic material of the human body to create a strong triangular shape. Triangles can also be related to spirals in a different way. Here is a picture of a uniform diameter spiral. A line is drawn in that begins below the spiral, then travels diagonally upwards to cut through one of the coils of the spiral, and then ends on the other side of the spiral. Another line is drawn in the picture that begins where the first line stopped, then slants diagonally downward in the opposite direction to cut through a neighboring coil of the spiral, and then stops under the bottom of the spiral. If a line is drawn in connecting the free ends of the two lines, all three lines form a triangular shape. Noticing that triangles can be interwoven with the coils of a spiral is not an idle observation. This picture can be used to provide more insight into how the human body is constructed and behaves. A uniform diameter three-dimensional spiral and a changing diameter three-dimensional spiral can influence the human body in still other ways not yet mentioned. If a uniform diameter three-dimensional spiral is made solid, the resulting shape is a cylinder. That means that any place in the human body where there is a cylindrical shape is a place that is influenced by a spiral. If a changing diameter three-dimensional spiral is made solid, the resulting shape is a cone. That means any place in the human body where a cone shape is found is a place that is influenced by a spiral. If the ends of a changing diameter three-dimensional spiral are colored black, they look like the mouth of a hole, with the rest of the spiral looking like the actual hole. If the end of a uniform diameter spiral is colored black, it also looks like the mouth of a hole, with the rest of the spiral looking like the actual hole. According to the spiral view of the human body, any place on the human body where a natural hole is located, such as the nostrils, the ears, or the mouth, is a place that is influenced by a spiral. The knowledge that spirals influence the construction and behavior of the human body is not unique to happy theory. Asian cultures have known for hundreds of years that spirals influence the construction and behavior of the human body. According to happy theory, Asian cultures have incorporated that knowledge into every aspect of their culture. One area that Asian cultures have incorporated that knowledge into is in the area of hand-to-hand combat systems. Asian cultures are known for the wide variety of hand-to-hand combat systems they have developed, which they call Kung Fu. Investigation will reveal that many of these Kung Fu systems are filled with references to the importance of spirals and descriptions of how a spiral influences the movements of that Kung Fu system. The references to spirals in those hundreds of years old Kung Fu systems support the claims of the spiral view of the human body that the construction and behavior of the human body is influenced by spirals. An individual who requires more proof that spirals influence the construction and behavior of the human body can acquire that proof by practicing any of the Kung Fu styles that include references to spirals. After some number of years, the practice of those Kung Fu styles will change the body of the individual in such a way that they will be able to feel the spiral nature of the body for themselves.